Roman was a soft-hearted 18-year-old who believed in love, loyalty, and trust. He wasn't the most outgoing person in college, but his charm came from his sincerity and kindness. His girlfriend Emma, the same age as him, was the opposite, vibrant, adventurous, and unafraid to take risks. Their contrasting personalities somehow worked perfectly, and for the past year they had been the golden couple of their college. To Roman, Emma was his world. She was his first love, his confidant, and his best friend. He doted on her endlessly, doing everything he could to make her happy. Whenever she wanted to try something new or go somewhere exciting, Roman was there, ready to make her dreams come true. He loved her with a kind of innocence that many would envy. Emma loved Roman too, or at least she thought she did. He was sweet, dependable, and cared for her in a way no one else had. But deep inside, Emma felt a growing restlessness. She craved excitement, unpredictability, and the thrill of pushing boundaries. While Roman was a stable force in her life, he didn't satisfy her growing need for adventure, especially when it came to intimacy. Over time, Emma began to feel like their relationship had become routine. Roman's affection, once endearing, started to feel suffocating. She wanted more. Something wild and unrestrained, something Roman could never give her. These thoughts haunted her, though she never expressed them to him. One Friday evening, their college announced a grand party to celebrate the end of midterms. It was the kind of event everyone looked forward to. Loud music, free drinks, and a chance to let loose. Roman and Emma were no exception. Emma, in particular, was excited. She spent hours picking out the perfect outfit, a short red dress that accentuated her curves. Roman, ever the supportive boyfriend, complimented her endlessly as they got ready together at his apartment. "You look stunning," he said, his eyes full of admiration. Emma smiled, but there was something distant in her expression. "Thanks, babe. Let's make tonight unforgettable." As they arrived at the party, the atmosphere was electric. The music boomed, students danced with wild abandon, and the drinks flowed freely. Roman and Emma stuck together at first, mingling with their classmates and enjoying the night. Roman, always attentive, made sure Emma had everything she needed, a drink in her hand, a seat when she got tired, and his undivided attention. But Emma's mind was elsewhere. She noticed Roman's 6 close friends, Dylan, Henry, David, Lucas, Carson, and Jake, hanging out near the bar. She had always been friendly with them, but tonight, she felt a strange pull toward them. They were rowdy, confident, and exuded the kind of raw energy she found intoxicating. As the night went on, Emma's thoughts became darker and more reckless. A dangerous idea began to form in her mind, a fantasy she had entertained in secret, but never dared to act on. She had always been curious about the thrill of being with multiple people, and tonight, surrounded by alcohol and adrenaline, the temptation was too strong to resist. Emma began to flirt subtly with Roman's friends, catching their eyes and smiling in a way that left little to the imagination. They noticed, of course, exchanging knowing glances and grins. Roman, oblivious to what was happening, continued to chat with his classmates, his back turned to the silent game Emma was playing. Finally, Emma decided to act. She leaned close to Roman and whispered, "I'm going to the bathroom with Carla to fix my makeup. We might take a while, so don't worry." Roman, trusting her, completely nodded and said, "Take your time. I'll be here." Emma walked away, her heart racing. Not with guilt, but with anticipation. She made her way to the bathroom, where she had already agreed to meet Dylan, the first of Roman's friends. She texted the others to wait nearby and join her one by one. Dylan arrived first, slipping into the bathroom with a cocky grin. Emma's heart pounded as she let herself go, giving in to her darkest desires. It was quick and impersonal, just as she wanted. As soon as Dylan was done, he left and Henry entered. One by one, Roman's 6 friends took their turn, each encounter more surreal than the last. Emma felt a strange mix of power and detachment, as though she were watching herself from outside her body. This wasn't about love or connection. It was about fulfilling a fantasy she had kept buried for far too long. Meanwhile, Roman remained at the party, sipping his drink and chatting with classmates. Occasionally, he glanced toward the hallway, wondering why Emma and Carla were taking so long. He also noticed that his 6 friends were nowhere to be seen, but he didn't think much of it. After all, it was a big party, and people were constantly coming and going. When Emma finally returned, she looked as composed as ever. Her makeup was flawless, her dress perfectly adjusted, and her smile warm and reassuring. She walked up to Roman, wrapped her arms around him and said, "Missed me?" "Always," Roman replied, pulling her close. The rest of the night passed uneventfully. Emma acted as though nothing had happened, laughing and dancing with Roman as if they were the perfect couple. Roman, oblivious to the betrayal, felt like the luckiest guy in the world. When the party ended, Emma suggested staying over at Roman's apartment as she often did. He agreed, happy to spend more time with her. They walked home together, hand in hand, under the soft glow of the streetlights. Back at the apartment, Roman made her a cup of tea before they went to bed. As they lay next to each other, he held her close, his heart full of love. Emma, however, stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying the events of the night. She felt no guilt, only a strange sense of satisfaction. For her, it had been an unforgettable experience. Exactly what she had wanted. For Roman, it was just another ordinary night with the girl he loved. Neither of them could have guessed how quickly their world was about to unravel. The next morning dawned like any other. Sunlight filtered through the curtains of Roman's small apartment, casting soft, golden rays over the room. Emma stirred under the covers, still deep in sleep, while Roman was already awake, quietly admiring her. He often spent his mornings like this, marveling at how lucky he was to have her in his life. She looked so peaceful, her chest rising and falling gently, her hair spread messily across the pillow. To Roman, she was perfect, a vision of beauty and everything he had ever wanted. Despite his quiet admiration, he couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. Something about last night felt off, but he quickly dismissed the thought. Emma loved him, and that was all that mattered. As Roman got out of bed and began preparing breakfast, his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. At first, he ignored it, focused on frying eggs and making coffee. But when it buzzed again and again, he frowned and picked it up. The screen displayed a notification from an anonymous email account. The subject line read, "You need to see this." Curiosity piqued, Roman opened the email. What he saw made his heart stop. Attached were several video files, each labeled with a single name: Dylan, Henry, David, Lucas, Carson, and Jake. Beneath the attachments, a short message read, "You deserve to know the truth. Last night, while you waited for her, this is what she was doing. Your friends betrayed you, and so did she. These videos are already out there. Everyone knows." For a moment, Roman stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he was reading. His hands trembled as he tapped on the first video. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. It showed Emma in the college bathroom, pressed against the wall, her dress hiked up as she kissed Dylan. Roman's stomach churned as he watched them move together, the sounds of their encounter ringing in his ears like a death knell. He quickly shut the video, his chest tightening with panic, but something compelled him to open the next one, and then the next. Each video told the same story. Emma with one of his friends, one after the other, their faces unmistakable, their actions unforgivable. By the time he reached the final video, Roman felt like he couldn't breathe. His chest heaved with shallow breaths, his vision blurred with tears. He stumbled back, gripping the edge of the counter for support. "This can't be real," he whispered to himself. "It has to be fake. It has to be." But deep down, he knew it wasn't. The details were too specific, the footage too damning. He replayed the events of the previous night in his mind. Emma's flirtatious behavior, her sudden disappearance, the prolonged absence of his friends. It all added up, and the realization hit him like a freight train. Emma had betrayed him. Roman's thoughts raced as a storm of emotions consumed him. Anger, heartbreak, humiliation. He felt like a fool. An idiot who had trusted her and his so-called friends without question. The videos weren't just a betrayal of their relationship, they were a public humiliation, an open wound for everyone to see. He turned to look at Emma, still asleep in his bed, her face serene and untouched by guilt. The sight of her, so peaceful, so oblivious, made his blood boil. How could she lie there so calmly after what she had done? How could she destroy him and act like nothing had happened? Roman's hand tightened around his phone as a dark thought crept into his mind. For the first time in his life, he felt the stirrings of something dangerous, something violent. But he shook his head, trying to push the thought away. Instead, he paced the apartment, running his hands through his hair and muttering to himself. He didn't know what to do. Part of him wanted to confront Emma immediately, to wake her up and demand answers. Another part of him wanted to run. To leave the apartment, leave the city, leave everything behind. As he struggled with his emotions, his phone buzzed again. It was another email, this time from an unknown sender. It's everywhere now. They leaked it to the group chats. Everyone's seen it. Roman's heart sank further. His humiliation wasn't just private, it was public. His class. He imagined the whispers, the stares, the cruel laughter. The thought made his skin crawl. He glanced at Emma again, his mind replaying the words from the email. She betrayed you. With trembling hands, he opened one of the videos again, forcing himself to watch. The more he saw, the angrier he became. Each frame was a dagger to his heart, each sound a reminder of her betrayal. By the time he closed the video, his anger had turned into a seething rage. Roman couldn't contain himself any longer. He marched to the bedroom, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. He stood over Emma, his shadow falling across her face. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. "Emma," he said, his voice low and trembling with fury. She opened her eyes, blinking sleepily. "Roman, what's wrong?" He didn't answer. Instead, he shoved the phone in her face, the video still playing. Her eyes widened as she realized what he was showing her. She sat up quickly, her face pale. "Where did you get this?" She stammered. "That's all you have to say?" Roman spat. "You're not even going to deny it?" Emma's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked away, her guilt written all over her face. You did this," Roman said, his voice cracking. "With them, my friends. You lied to me. You told me you were going to the bathroom with Carla, and then you. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I was drunk, and it was just a stupid mistake." "A mistake?" Roman's voice rose. "You called that a mistake?" 6 times, Emma. 6 of my closest friends. Was I not enough for you?" Emma looked at him helplessly, her tears spilling over. "I don't know what to say. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was bored, Roman. I needed something different, something exciting." "Bored?" Roman repeated, his voice shaking with disbelief. "You were bored, so you decided to humiliate me, to betray me in the worst way possible." Emma sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't think it would get out. I didn't think anyone would find out." "Well, they did," Roman said bitterly. "Everyone knows now. The whole college is laughing at me because of you." "I'm sorry," she cried. "I'll do anything to make it up to you. Please, Roman, I didn't mean to hurt you." But her words fell on deaf ears. Roman's heart was shattered, his trust broken beyond repair. The girl he had loved with all his heart had betrayed him, and nothing she could say or do would ever fix it. As he stood there, staring at the woman who had destroyed his world, a dark thought crossed his mind, a thought he couldn't ignore. Roman's heart was pounding as he stared at Emma. His breath was shallow, and his hands trembled with a mix of anger and disbelief. The girl he loved, the girl he had trusted with everything, was now the embodiment of his deepest betrayal. Her sobbing only fueled the storm inside him, each tear a mockery of the pain she had inflicted. As she sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face, Emma repeated her apologies. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Roman. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. I thought it was just a moment. It didn't mean anything." Those words struck him like a hammer. It didn't mean anything. To her, Their relationship was disposable. He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms so hard that they left marks. Roman's voice was low, almost a whisper, but the intensity in it was chilling. Didn't mean anything? 6 people, Emma. 6 of my friends. You planned this. You went out of your way to destroy everything we had. Don't you dare say it didn't mean anything. Emma flinched at the venom in his words, but managed to meet his eyes. I didn't destroy us, Roman. You're overreacting. People make mistakes. That was it. The casual way she dismissed her actions broke something inside him. Roman stood there for a moment, silent and still. Then he turned, walking slowly into the kitchen. Emma's sobs began to quiet as she watched him leave the room, assuming he needed space to cool off. She didn't move from the bed, too consumed by guilt and regret to follow him. She thought he would eventually return and yell at her some more before storming out. She had no idea what was coming. In the kitchen, Roman opened a drawer and stared down at the collection of knives inside. His mind raced with thoughts he couldn't control, images of Emma with his friends, the laughter of his classmates when they saw the leaked videos, the endless whispers behind his back. His life was ruined, and she was the reason why. He reached out and grabbed a large kitchen knife, the cold steel heavy in his hand. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at it, his reflection distorted on the blade. She doesn't deserve this. She doesn't deserve to live after what she's done. The thought repeated in his mind, louder and louder, until it drowned out everything else. Roman walked back to the bedroom, the knife hidden behind his back. Emma was still sitting on the bed, her face buried in her hands. She looked up when she heard his footsteps, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Roman, she began, her voice trembling. I know you're hurt. I know I've done something terrible, but please, let's talk about this. We can fix it. He didn't respond. He stood there, staring at her, his expression unreadable. Say something, she pleaded. Finally he spoke, his voice eerily calm. Fix it? You think we can fix this? You think there's anything left to fix? Emma's eyes darted to his hands, noticing the knife for the first time. Her breath hitched as fear began to creep into her expression. Roman, she said slowly, her voice shaky. What are you doing? He took a step closer, his grip on the knife tightening. You destroyed me, Emma. You tore my life apart. Do you even understand what you've done? Her eyes widened as she scrambled backward on the bed. Please, Roman, put the knife down. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. Sorry, he repeated, his voice rising. You think sorry is enough? You think I can just forget what you did? He lunged forward, slashing at her arm. Blood spattered across the sheets as Emma screamed, clutching her wounded arm and trying to crawl away. Roman, stop, please, she sobbed, her voice breaking. I'll do anything. Don't do this. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. The betrayal, the humiliation, the anger, it all consumed him. He raised the knife again, stabbing her in the shoulder. Emma screamed louder, her cries echoing through the apartment. You destroyed me, Roman shouted, his voice trembling with rage. You made me a joke. You turned my life into hell. Emma tried to fight back, grabbing at his arms, but he was too strong. He stabbed her again and again, each thrust fueled by his pain and anger. Blood soaked the bed, the metallic smell filling the room. I loved you, he screamed. I would have done anything for you, and this is how you repay me? Emma's struggles grew weaker as her body began to give out. Her voice was barely a whisper now, her words incoherent. Tears streamed down her face as she looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear and regret. Roman stopped, breathing heavily, his chest heaving as he looked down at her. She was barely alive, her body covered in blood, her breathing shallow. For a moment, he hesitated, the weight of what he had done crashing down on him. But then he thought of the videos, the betrayal, the laughter of his classmates. His anger flared again, and he raised the knife one final time. This is for everything you've taken from me, he said, his voice cold. He drove the knife into her chest, and Emma's body went still. Roman stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at her lifeless body. The room was silent except for the sound of his ragged breathing. Blood covered his hands, the knife, the bed, everything. He dropped the knife, his hands trembling. The reality of what he had done began to sink in, and panic set in. He stumbled out of the bedroom, grabbing his phone and wallet. He had to leave to get as far away as possible. But as he walked out the door, leaving it ajar in his haste, he didn't notice the neighbor across the hall peeking out. The neighbor, who had heard the screams and seen the blood dripping under the door, immediately called the police. Roman didn't make it far. He was arrested a few blocks away, still covered in blood. At the police station, he confessed everything, the betrayal, the videos, the murder. His voice was cold and detached as he recounted the events, as though he were talking about someone else. "I wasn't going to stop," he admitted. "I was going to find my friends next. They deserve to pay for what they did, too." His trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming, and his confession sealed his fate. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The news of Emma's brutal murder and the events leading up to it spread like wildfire through the college, the community, and eventually the entire nation. For days, the media painted a grim picture of the tragedy, an innocent young man pushed to the brink of insanity by betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak. Others saw Roman as nothing more than a cold-blooded killer who had brutally ended the life of a young woman, regardless of her mistakes. At the center of it all was the video that had ignited Roman's rage. The footage, leaked anonymously, circulated on the internet before authorities could contain it. The 6 friends involved were publicly identified and shamed, their names forever associated with the scandal. While Emma's actions were controversial, the betrayal by Roman's closest friends was seen as equally deplorable. At the college, the aftermath was devastating. What was once a vibrant and welcoming campus was now shrouded in unease and judgment. Students whispered about the leaked videos in hallways and dorm rooms, speculating about the details and taking sides. Some students openly shamed Emma's 6 accomplices, labeling them as predators who took advantage of a young woman's recklessness. Others criticized Emma for her actions, calling her immoral and selfish for pursuing such a reckless fantasy that ended in death. The college administration acted swiftly, suspending all 6 friends involved in the incident. 2 of them dropped out immediately, unable to handle the public scrutiny and condemnation. The remaining 4 were ostracized, unable to attend classes without enduring glares and whispers. Professors avoided them, and their once close friendships with other classmates dissolved in the wake of the scandal. The incident also sparked a campus-wide discussion about relationships, consent, and morality. Some student groups held rallies to raise awareness about the dangers of toxic relationships and the psychological toll of betrayal. Others argued about the role of fantasy and freedom in personal relationships, but no consensus could be reached. The college itself was tainted by the tragedy. Its reputation damaged as the media delved into the story again and again. Emma's parents were devastated by her death. The once vibrant, carefree girl they knew was now gone, her life reduced to a cautionary tale. They struggled with the dual burden of mourning their daughter while grappling with the controversy surrounding her actions. Her mother, Claudia, defended Emma's memory, speaking out in interviews to remind the world that Emma was more than her mistakes. "She was my daughter, my little girl," Claudia said through tears during a television interview. "She wasn't perfect, but no one is. She didn't deserve to die for her choices." Roman could have walked away. He could have chosen another path, but instead, he ended her life. Nothing she did justifies that. Her father, on the other hand, remained silent. Friends of the family noted that he struggled deeply with the public exposure of Emma's actions. Unable to reconcile the image of the daughter he had loved with the one portrayed in the leaked videos, he withdrew from public life entirely, avoiding the media and the neighbors who had once respected him. The funeral was a somber affair, attended by close family and friends. Few from the college showed up, fearing the backlash from being associated with Emma. Her parents buried her in their hometown, far from the campus and the memories of her final days. For Roman's parents, the news of his crime was like a thunderclap. His mother, Marissa, was inconsolable, refusing to believe that her loving, caring son could have committed such a heinous act. She repeatedly stated to reporters and anyone who would listen, Roman was a good boy. He loved Emma. He would never do something like this unless he was pushed beyond his limits. This wasn't who he was. Roman's father, on the other hand, struggled to hide his shame. He refused to speak publicly about his son, retreating into himself and avoiding the growing media storm. He told close friends that he couldn't bear the looks of pity and judgment from their neighbors, many of whom whispered about how Roman must have been raised to commit such a crime. Marissa visited Roman in prison during the trial, breaking down into sobs every time she saw him in handcuffs. "You're my baby," she said to him during one of their visits, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you do this, Roman? Why didn't you come to me?" Roman didn't have an answer. He sat silently, staring at the cold metal table in front of him. The trial was one of the most highly publicized in the area's history. Every detail of Roman and Emma's relationship was scrutinized, from the early days of their romance to the night of the party. The defense argued that Roman had been driven to a mental breakdown by the betrayal and public humiliation, painting him as a victim of emotional abuse and manipulation. "He was just a boy in love," Roman's lawyer said during closing arguments. "A boy who trusted the wrong person and was pushed to his breaking point." The prosecution, however, focused on the brutal nature of the murder. They played recordings of Roman's confession, highlighting the premeditation behind his actions. This was not a crime of passion, the prosecutor argued. This was calculated, deliberate, and vicious. When the verdict was read, the courtroom was silent. Roman was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He didn't react, his face blank as the judge delivered the sentence. In prison, Roman became a ghost of his former self. The boy who had once been known for his kindness and sensitivity was now withdrawn and hardened. Other inmates whispered about him, fascinated by the story of the love-struck teenager who had turned into a killer. Roman avoided interactions with others, spending most of his time in his cell. He refused therapy and declined to participate in prison programs, choosing instead to live in the isolation of his own mind. Letters from his mother came regularly, but he rarely read them. Occasionally, he would sit on the edge of his bunk, staring at the walls and replaying the events of that night over and over again. The case sparked a national debate about the nature of betrayal, revenge, and morality. Talk shows and podcasts dissected every aspect of the story, from Emma's controversial choices to Roman's violent response. Some argued that Roman was a victim of emotional abuse and humiliation, pushed to the edge by circumstances beyond his control. Others saw him as a cautionary tale about toxic masculinity and the dangers of possessiveness in relationships. Emma's actions were equally polarizing. Some sympathized with her, viewing her as a young woman who had made a mistake and paid the ultimate price. Others criticized her for betraying Roman's trust and engaging in reckless behavior. In the end, the story of Roman and Emma became a cautionary tale, a tragedy without winners, only victims. Their love, once pure and full of promise, had been destroyed by betrayal, poor choices, and uncontrollable emotions. Emma's grave remained unvisited by many, her memory tarnished by the scandal. Roman, locked away for life, was a shell of the person he once was, consumed by regret and the weight of his actions. The story served as a grim reminder of the consequences of betrayal and the devastating power of unchecked emotions. It was a tale that left a scar on everyone involved, one that would never truly heal. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video for more true crime video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video.